Started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Meredith Martin, Deputy Budget and Performance Management Director with the City of Winston-Salem. We also, from the city staff, have on this call Scott Tesh, who's the Director of the Budget and Performance Management Office. For today's meeting, I'm just going to go through a brief slideshow update and then open the floor for any questions that that you all may have regarding the phases we are currently in. So let me share my screen here and get us started. All right, so just to provide an update to you all on the framework for ARPA. The city was allocated $51.7 million for ARPA funding. Of that, a little over 34.5 has been allocated by City Council, 20 million for housing investments, 5.6 million for city fund restoration, a little over 3 million for the recovery grants program, about 2.5 for various employee incentives regarding vaccinations and premium pay, 1.3 for community violence intervention, some admin responsibility funds, almost $1 million there, and then 100,000 for our eviction diversion program. That leaves about 17.1 million available. And according to the framework that we currently have in place, 10.5 of that is for social and economic assistance, which the phase we're kind of currently in, the transformational grants phase, those funds would be available for those grants. 5 million for digital divide, and a little over 1.6 million for additional administrative costs or other items that City Council sees fit, other ways to see the City Council sees fit to spend those funds. So just touching base kind of on where we are and providing a few updates. The recovery grants for businesses and nonprofits program. This program was to provide assistance for those in arrears on rent, mortgage, and utilities for small businesses as well as nonprofits within the social services area or travel and tourism and arts areas. This program took place, closed, I believe, in February. We had an estimated about around 200,000 in grants that were approved. As of Monday night, the City Council approved reopening this program. So staff is working to stand this program back up. We're hoping to open it next week, and it would remain open for a month. And so I would just ask you all to visit cityofws.org/CLFRF for updates on this program and the timetable as we reopen it. The program that's currently open is the transformative grants process. This opportunity is available for any eligible nonprofit for capital or operating. The application is available right now via Neighborly. The application process will close on Monday, April 25th at 5 p.m. So please note that if it's 4:59, you should go in and click submit because the application portal will close and we will not be able to accept any applications after 5 p.m. on Monday, April 25th. For more information on this process, all of that is available at cityofws.org/CLFRF. That includes the scoring matrix, which I have a screenshot here, which is how your applications will be scored. Information or the link to the actual application, as well as a link to our strategic plan and the orientation where staff walked you through the application and tried to answer as many questions that arose. So all of that information is available on the city website. And like I said, that's a brief presentation. So I'll stop sharing my screen now and really get into any questions you all may have regarding ARPA, the transformational phase, or anything else. So feel free to raise your hand, use the chat function, and Scott and I will help answer any questions that we can. Quiet group today.
I'll start us off. I'm Tim Klontz. I'm the CEO of Community Care Center for Forsyth County. Can you walk us through, after we submit the application, what kinds of communication there might be or questions, that kind of thing that we might see from the city staff as you review the applications.
Yes. So hopefully city staff will, hopefully your application ideally would answer all of city staff's questions as we go through the scoring matrix. We tried to line it up where the application follows the scoring matrix and you can complete the application and provide all the information we're looking for. So the applications will be scored within the next month. Depending on the number of applications we receive, we're trying to score those by city staff and tier them and send those to city council as quickly as possible. Would love to be able to try to complete this within a month. But again, depending on the number of applications we receive, it may take a little longer. But we'll take that information to city council for approval. And once that occurs, we would be able to communicate even further regarding what was approved by city council and what is moving forward as far as the proposals we're following.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, get in the game.
Hey, I'm Stephanie Hudson with Get in the Game. I have a question about timing. Like I know in the application, it asks how many months you would use to spend the money, I believe. I know that this is only a 1-year project offering, but can we use more than a year to spend the money?
Correct. You can have, you can request multi-year funding. However, it needs to, all the funds would need to be obligated by the end of 2024 and used by the end of 2026.
Okay. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions?
I have one more.
Sure.
Do you guys have, like, if we're looking for like demographic data in Winston, do you guys have any recommended sources?
I don't off the top of my head. Scott, do you have?
So generally, I would tell you the Bureau of Labor Statistics website is probably a good place to go. Depending on how far you are willing and want to drill down in that information, you can get different levels of information. You can start off just kind of at the city level if you're trying to do an overall piece, but I think you can also go in and download individual data sets for census tracts. So that just kind of how granular you want to be with that. That's okay. The first place that I always start for that data from an overall perspective.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think I said BLS. Census.gov is the where to go. I've been doing economic projections. Sorry about that.
Got it. Thanks.
And for those that just joined, we're answering any questions you may have. So feel free just to use the raise your hand feature, chat, or just speak up if you have any questions. Go ahead, Eunice Campbell.
I'll mute myself. Oh, how you doing? I have a question about if a nonprofit is wanting to use the grant for operational costs that's associated with already established programs, are they allowed to apply, or is that a disqualifying?
So the answer to that question is that you would be allowed to apply for that. You would meet the public purpose clause in the state's constitution to apply for grant funding. What I would say anecdotally is that you probably won't receive the same level of scoring based on the way that the scoring matrix is set up to provide additional for transformative grants and programs. So it's looking at how again, several of the questions in there, as you see, we'll discuss the performance and outcomes of the programs. And so if you're simply supporting administrative staff, it would be probably a little more difficult to show the same level of performance of a different program. So you are more than welcome to submit that, but would note how that's being looked at by staff.
Okay, so but if we then decide not to use the operational cost, then just the cost of the program.
Tell me what you mean by operational cost. I want to make
line.
sure that when we say operational and program costs, that we're talking the same language there. Give me an example of what you're talking about.
Okay, well, we are a freedom school, and we have certain costs associated with running our freedom school, which is a summer literacy program that combats the learning loss, your summer learning loss. And we just have certain costs associated with the program, with being a part of the Children's Defense Fund, using their curriculum and all the things that go along with that. So we're looking for grant funding to help us with our summer program. And we feel like that, with the COVID learning loss to some of the and being able to work already with summer reading loss, and we've seen the effects last summer with the added COVID loss, and the Children's Defense Fund, we test or benchmark our kids at the beginning of the program, and then we benchmark them at the end. So we have the data that shows that our program works. From their reading levels from the beginning to the reading levels to the end. So like I said, we're just looking for grants to help us continue on with our program. And we're either looking at the total freedom school or individual freedom schools. The one that I deal with, we have about 50 students.
Sure. So where it comes to the application, I want to talk about this generally, and it talks about program expenditures. That's the cost of providing the program. And in many cases, the cost of providing a program is going to include many types of operating expenses, like rent and utilities. You have to have classroom space to be able to provide an in-person instruction if you're going to. Would caution you. So the way I kind of answered that question the first time, if you're looking at covering the salary of your executive director or something like that, out of that kind of that really general admin expense, that's not a direct program expense, that's probably going to be viewed a little differently than a direct program expense. So just a note there.
Okay, so maybe the people who are teaching the kids, would that be more in line versus executive director, or is that up there with the executive director?
Again, you can scope the program any way you want, but if you're if someone is providing a literacy program of some kind, the teachers who are providing that providing that educational would in almost all cases be considered an operating expense of the program, not kind of an overhead expense. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead, Tom.
Hi. I had a question about performance measures. Is there any chance you can bring up the Performance Measures 101 YouTube video?
I think it's going to be a little difficult to bring up the video and go to a specific section of it. If you can tell us what your question is.
Well,
You don't have to answer it.
okay. And I'll tell you, it's at 11 minutes and 45 seconds. There's a chart of 4 performance measures. And these are related to serving meals to students. And some of them are workload. Here's one: provide free meals at lunchtime during the summer to 250 individuals. So that's a workload, right? You serve the meals and you document the individuals. Then right underneath that, there's a measure: distribute 15,000 total meals to youth. And the activity is to serve meals and document the total number. What kind of measure is that?
So I'll tell you, Mr. Allred, we get in dealing with different levels of nonprofit entities, the ability to measure their effectiveness is not always the same. I would tell you, do the best you can in defining the difference for yourself between a workload and an effectiveness measure. Generally, if someone said that they were going to provide 15,000 meals, we would allow them to say if they provided 15,000 meals, then the effectiveness measure would be that they gave out 100% of their projected goal. So again, there's no 100% correct, right, or wrong there. There are, again, some of those entities who have access to data will tell you how they affected overall hunger amongst a specific population of children, and that would be an effectiveness measure or an outcome measure. I wouldn't get too hung up on the language. If you can measure more than the direct output that you have, the more of that you can measure, the more you're going to be able to show the effectiveness of the program.
Okay. Thanks.
Go ahead, Timothy.
Yes, thank you, Tim. It would be fine. Thank you. First of all, I thought y'all did a great job of laying out the application. We do a fair number of applications, and it's one of the more direct and easy to follow applications we've done recently. So wanted to give you that. I did want to ask a question and maybe some clarification around the section on collaborators. It was a bit unclear to me whether you solely wanted folks that are likely to be financial contributors, whether they're institutional or personal individuals, or are you also looking for, are we intending or expecting to have collaborative relationships with others that may not involve intermingling of finances, but intermingling of services or services to particular individuals?
So I will tell you, Tim, the intent of that is probably leaning more towards the second part of your question, which is it was the collaboration in service delivery. So at a very high level, if you were, let's say, going to provide services to a veterans population, and you were a veterans outreach group, had you also worked with other veteran outreach groups? We do, obviously, in the financial stability component of that, ask you for the financial partners as well. But on the collaboration piece, it's really aimed more at who are you collaborating with from a service delivery and design perspective.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If we don't know, so our program, we know that we would we work with youth in getting involved in the community. So we know that we would collaborate with community partners, but we don't necessarily have those identified yet because it's sort of, part of it is up to the students' interests. So should we identify people that we could potentially collaborate with, or does it need to be people that we have definitely spoken to and are committed to collaborating with?
The scoring matrix itself is designed to give points for known and intended collaborations. So if you do not have those established and have not had those communications, the scoring matrix as staff looks at it would not be designed to give you additional points for collaboration there.
Right.
If you have reached out to those organizations, even if you don't have a formal letter in hand, you could say, we have spoken with X and intend to collaborate with them, have talked about this. So staff would be willing to look at that, but from an open perspective, just naming potential collaborators is not the intent of that section.
Okay. And sort of a follow-up question related to, so the other part of our program is working with the school system and potentially other organizations, but identifying specific schools in which we would implement this program. And so we've got a recommendation of schools, but until it's funded, like we won't know for sure exactly which schools we would go into. So if we were to caveat it with, right now we're recommending this number of schools in a QCT area. And if something happens and we aren't able to go into that school, as long as we go into another school in a QCT, does that mess us up?
So in terms of the target population for the program, as long as the participants are going to have the same types of income and demographic, that's probably not going to be a problem for anyone. So if you're looking at 2 or 3 different locations, no matter what the service is, if you're providing those within a QCT to low to moderate income people, that's probably not going to be much of a problem for you if it's one site versus another. Right. If it was multiple sites throughout the city, and then you, for whatever reason, were not able to provide those services in the qualified census tracts, and instead we're looking at ones, say, on the west side of town in higher income areas,
right,
then we would have a problem, and you probably no longer meet the thresholds for some of the ARPA funding.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, I'll go on and wrap this up. If you all have any questions or need to reach out, please feel free to do so. Again, applications close on Monday, April 25th. So yes, Eunice.
The information you were showing is that information somewhere that could be downloaded, or like you were?
Yes, ma'am. I will post this on our website at the conclusion of this meeting. I'll post that slideshow.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Meredith, let's leave it open for just a minute in case somebody has a question that they didn't want with the whole group. So.
Okay.
Hey, Tom, if you're still there, do you have a specific question about a type of performance metric that you were trying to get some feedback on? I'm trying to think more generally in answering that for everyone, but if you have a very specific one that you'd like to discuss, I'm more than happy to kind of have that open conversation with you.
Thank you. Sorry, I was in the middle of pizza, but
I can barely hear you.
Now.
There we go. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yep. The issue I was having is that both the individuals who received meals, in this case, it was a count, and it was workload. But then the the fact that they distributed 15,000 total meals, that was another count. Served meals document the total, and yet that was declared to be effectiveness.
Yeah, the intent there. So some of those nonprofits are going to say, this summer we want to give out 15,000 meals. So the workload measure may be that they gave out 13,000 meals. The effectiveness would be 13,000 into 15,000, and it would really be the percentage would be the effectiveness measure. That was probably an oversimplification to show that if you said you were going to give out 15,000 and you gave out 15,000, that you met your program goal.
Well, and it's funny because in this case, both of those measures, if you do that percentage, are 94%. So it's kind of like you're measuring the same thing, but you're calling one, and you're not, because one is individuals and the other is total meals. But, both counts. That's just what was throwing me off, trying to discern a difference between one type of count and another type of count.
Yeah, that's probably, like I said, a nuance in the way that video was created to show that. Counting things is generally workload, and a lot of the default effectiveness measures we get are the percentages compared to a goal. So, somebody said they were going to give out 15,000 and they gave out 10,000. They would have had a 67% effectiveness rate because they would have given out 2/3 of the meals that they had intended to at the onset of the program. So we would much prefer the percentage component there, but don't always get it. Sometimes we as staff have to do that calculation kind of on the back end for organizations as they submit things like that. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I like the percentage part definitely better. And
yep.
I'll just stop there. Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It does appear, Meredith, that we actually have one or two more people popping in. So we'll note for those who are popping in at this point that the presentation has taken place and that questions were being asked. A majority of the participants have already left. But if you have any additional questions, we as staff are more than willing to hang out for just a couple more minutes to make sure that we hit everybody's questions. Meredith, looks like one other person is still trying to connect there via audio. So we'll give this another minute and make sure that person's able to connect in case they have a question.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, I hate to cut anybody off, but I'm not sure that the individual is fully connected there and able to join to ask a question. Well, I will note, if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to send them to arpa@cityofws.org. We will do everything we can to respond to those in a timely fashion. Try to get to them the same day, but if there are a lot of questions that get asked, I think we do sometimes have a turnaround time of the following day. But feel free to send those emails or to call CityLink at 311, and they will get you routed if you need to speak to someone in person as well. So again, as Meredith said, the cutoff will be Monday at 5 o'clock. Please get your application in by that point. In order to be fair to everyone, applications will not be allowed to be submitted after that time. So, all righty.
Oh, real quick, one more. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
One last thing. Can we submit any additional documents?
Tom, I've been directing folks that if there's some sort of additional document that you feel really needs to be part of your application, I will email you, Tom, where to add that, just so I can give you the correct location I've been telling other individuals.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all for doing this. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good one.